Hi tea sippers, I hope you're staying warm this winter season. Welcome to an all-new episode of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. This is your host, Mark Long, and you know I bring it to you fresh every time, especially when my cup runneth over with politics, current events, and current news updates. Get your tea, get your cup, your Crystal Light, your water, or whatever have you, child, because we're about to dive right in. Let's get started, tea sippers. Don Lemon, he's 59 years old, the former CNN anchor. You all know him. He's the openly gay, black, turned independent journalist. He was recently just arrested by federal agents late Thursday night in Los Angeles, where he was covering the Grammy Award event. Take a look. Or take a listen.
With breaking news for you, former CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested late last night on federal charges tied to a protest earlier this month at a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Lemon says he was reporting as a journalist when demonstrators interrupted a service to protest immigration enforcement. A magistrate judge previously rejected the case against him, but prosecutors later sought and obtained his arrest. Lemon was taken into custody in Los Angeles and is scheduled to appear in federal court this morning. His lawyer, Abby Lowell, calls the prosecution an unprecedented attack on the First Amendment. We have Lisa Rubin here, Molly John Fax joining us. But Jonathan Lemire, can we go through a little more what happened in St. Paul, in the church, so then Lisa can break down these charges and how it all matches up?
Yeah, we'll lean on her legal expertise in just a moment. But Don Lemon is now an independent journalist, no longer at CNN. He was in Minnesota covering the protests following the two shooting deaths there, Vernay Good and then Alex Pretty.
So, let's dive right in. So, the arrest is tied to the protests as they just mentioned, but this was specifically the protest that was on January 18th at the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. And what basically is happening right now is the allegation is that there is some form of conspiracy interfering with the First Amendment rights of worshipers, and that Don Lemon was going there as a part of the protesters to stir some trouble in the church, is basically what they're trying to say. So the Attorney General Pam Bondi right now is publicly stating that Lemon and 3 others have also been arrested in connection with a coordinated attack on the church. Now, they're calling this an attack on the church, and more incidents or more details from the incident just came out, stating that people were confronted in the church, and people were saying that children were being confronted by statements saying that your parents are Nazis and are going to burn in hell. Now, clearly that's a lot of hearsay, and there's no proof of that currently. There's current videos of people protesting, and we see other videos of Don Lemon interviewing. Now, Don Lemon's position and what his current attorney is saying, Abby Lowell, she's saying that Lemon was acting as a journalist, and he did not come there with an agenda other to not be a part of a protest, but just to go and do his job as a journalist. He was asking some of the protesters and worshipers questions. The arrest in this incident, the attorney states that it is an unprecedented attack on the First Amendment, and that his work in Minneapolis was constitutionally protected given his First Amendment right and obviously the freedom of press. Now, Lemon maintains his stance that he has no affiliation with the protesters. And the other people that were arrested in this incident include another few journalists. So Georgia Fort, Jamiel Liddell Lundy, and I can't say one of the names, but Traheron Jean Cruz. And there's a lot of outrage right now. The LA mayor, Karen Bass, called the arrest shocking and alarming, as, you know, they're clearly hosting the Grammys right now, and it was kind of like a full-on, basically like a show. Like, you know, let's go arrest and let's go get Don Lemon. We know that MAGA Minaj and Trump were making statements earlier this week about going after him because he decided to do his job as a journalist. So the case has also intensified in a current debate over like federal outreach or federal overreach, and if the freedom of press is being under attack amid the ICE protests and immigration enforcement. That is all basically positioned to steer away from current mishandlings of crimes within the government itself. Now, some things to mention again. Lemon has been increasingly outspoken against the Trump administration since leaving CNN in 2023. He's had his own independent journalism take off. And the protest was tied to a broader tensions following the deaths of the shootings and the anti-ICE activism. And Don Lemon was just going there to just, get some conversation started, right? He wanted there to be dialogue. He wanted there to be some understanding from both sides. And Nicki Minaj has pressed this on Twitter by going after Don Lemon's sexuality and his identity. By coming for him, and Trump has basically threatened that he was going to arrest Don Lemon, and it looks like they kept their promise. I will keep us completely updated about everything that's happening with this. My own personal take is that this is bullshit. It's a distraction from the Epstein files. He's an openly gay black man, journalist, who is trying to be intimidated from reporting on facts. And these churchgoers have gotten to the president because they're homophobic and they're Christians and they're sick people. And they believe that having their worship service interrupted is a crime. When in fact our country was founded on the disruption of plenty of religious ceremonies and entities that were attacked by white supremacists for the beginning of the time since this country has been around. So the audacity of this administration to try to position Don Lemon as a trophy that we got him is kind of weird and kind of fucked up. So speaking of weird and completely fucked up, let's get back into Nicki Minaj, because I've been completely tearing into her since a couple episodes ago. But I want to talk about what happened on January 28th. So Trump and his administration, his team or whatever, they hosted this Trump account summit, and Nicki pretty much told the crowd how much she is just enthralled by the president. Just take a listen. Oh yeah, by the way, MAGA was there. MAGA Minaj was there. Right now, she is holding Donald Trump's hand and taking pictures.
Hello. Well, I don't know what to say, but I will say that I am probably the president's #1 fan. And that's not going to change. And the hate or what people have to say, it does not affect me at all. It actually motivates me to support him more. And it's going to motivate all of us to support him more. We're not going to let them get away with bullying him and, the smear campaigns. It's not going to work, okay? He has a lot of force behind him, and God is protecting him.
I don't even know if Nicki knows anything. But anyway, so she said all that, and then photos of her and Trump were going viral, of her holding his hand, of her lace front coming off on the side with the glue knot tacked in, because the gays aren't supporting her and she's not getting her hair done properly. Yeah, so it's just a mess. The coverage on this pretty much emphasizes how open Nicki is about being MAGA now, and how she's doubling down on the backlash, telling us that she is going to support Trump regardless, and if we come for her more about it, she's going to have more support. When is Nicki going to realize that we don't care? We don't care if you support Donald Trump. We only care about the hypocrisy because you got rich off of our backs. That means you're not a real artist. You're fake. You're not doing your work or doing your entertainment because you care about your fans. You're doing it because you like the money of it all. And you basically have decided you wanted to switch gears and support a pedophile because you're married to one. So that's what's really going on here. She can hold his hand and act crazy with this hoodie helmet that she has on all she wants. But I do feel like this is just speaks open to how people shift gears based on what is going great for them. In more news following this, Nicki posted a picture of her holding a gold card, which, if you all remember, Donald Trump, the crazy orange Oompa Loompa tired old gremlin man that thinks he's in charge of everyone, decided that he wanted to sell go-karts for $1 million. And these go-karts were being sold primarily to people who didn't live in the United States, who were not from countries that Donald Trump banned immigration from. But he's basically saying that if you purchase one of these go-karts, that you get citizenship. And Nicki Minaj is clearly doing all of this because she wanted her go-kart. Mind you, Nicki Minaj is undocumented. She's not an American. She's not a black American, most importantly. She may claim that she has a lot of black experiences, but that doesn't make her a black American through and through. She's not from the United States. Just wanted to make sure that that's clear. And she went through all of this to basically get her allegiance to Trump because she was very critical of the Trump administration prior to wanting to kiss up to him now. And we see that she's starting to lean into this whole faith thing after pretty much rapping about, getting, fellatio and getting her cooter ate out in all of her rap songs. So it's kind of interesting how she decided to shift gears. Maybe she is deciding to release a gospel album. If she doesn't, I would be shocked because I don't know how her career is going to come back from this. And I think she's just trying to get her citizenship. There's something in it for her. Money sometimes talks, and, people sometimes sacrifice the best things for the worst kind of circumstance. So good luck, Nikki, with your failed career. Moving right along, let's talk about Minnesota and the happenings over there. So Amy Klobuchar has officially announced that she is entering the 2026 Minnesota's governor's race. She announced her run on January 29th, immediately after Governor Tim Walz dropped his bid for the third term, which is shaking up, the Minnesota politics with everything that's happening. So what Amy Klobuchar said was that she believes that she has to stand up for what's right and fix what's wrong. And she also went on to talk about, why today is a good time for her to announce her candidacy. And she emphasized healthcare, housing, resisting being a rubber stamp for the Trump administration. Now, Governor Tim Walz unexpectedly ended his re-election campaign earlier in January, citing political turmoil and fraud-related fallout that he was dealing with. Right now, Minnesota is currently at a flashpoint because of everything that's happening. Most importantly, because of the federal immigration crackdowns, the high-profile shootings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And Klobuchar is framing her run as a fix-it leader. She wants to go in and stabilize the state. She wants to be someone who will stand up to Trump and still at the same time find common ground. And she's someone who wants to position herself as a champion for healthcare affordability for students, farmers, and for dreamers. Now let's talk about a little bit of her background. So on a historical note, Klobuchar becomes the 4th U.S. Senator from Minnesota since 1913 to run for governor, and one of 5 senators nationwide to do so in 2026. Most importantly, this comes to light as there's a lot of political violence and unrest in Minnesota. Right now, there has been a little bit more push happening in terms of getting more leadership in, as Governor Tim Walz has made it very clear that he does not want to run the state. So it'll be interesting to see who else comes out in Minnesota to run for governor. But let's dive a little bit more into some follow-up from the Minneapolis shooting with Alex Preddy. The Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, pretty much held a press conference and stating that they are going to do some kind of civil rights investigation into the case. Please take a listen.
And to the extent that such arrangements exist, I'm not aware of them.
On to Minnesota, if I may ask you real quick. That's in the topic, in the headlines right now. There's new video of a man believed to be Alex Preddy, who's spitting, who's kicking out a taillight of a law enforcement vehicle. Does that change the perception of a potential DOJ investigation? Is there going to be a civil rights investigation into his death? Where does that land now that video's out? Then I have a quick follow-up on that.
I don't think a single video should change any perception the Department of Justice may or may not have about that tragic occurrence last Saturday. We've said repeatedly over the past week that, of course, this is something that we're investigating, and we are. That's what we would always do in circumstances like this. And so there's an investigation that's ongoing, which I'm not going to talk about. But just look, the problem is an initial reaction to a particular video, one or another. You're talking about one that happened apparently some days ahead of last Saturday. It's an investigation. So an investigation necessarily means just that. It means talking to witnesses. It means looking at documentary evidence, sending subpoenas if you have to. And the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has the best experts in the world at this. They've been doing it for decades. And so I expect that investigation will proceed with those parameters in mind.
Okay, so just to kind of clean a little bit of this up. So recent footage came out of Alex Preddy protesting 11 days prior to the incident where he was killed. And he was agitated by some of the ICE officers. They were surrounding apartment complexes and going in and taking people out. He was agitated as well as other protesters, and he was seen kicking out the taillight of one of the federal agent vehicles. Now, that is clearly a crime, right? At the time, he was detained properly and he was not murdered. So what people are trying to insinuate and what the investigation, the civil rights investigation, is trying to uncover was if this is linked to the murder, and now they're trying to see if there's a way where they can spin it and claim that some kind of self-defense was happening based on some background knowledge of Alex Preddy wearing the same outfit and him being recognized by some of the ICE officers. Now, there's another way to look at this too, because this is clearly a stretch by whoever is pushing for this investigation. Because even if he was agitated in the video compared to when he was killed, it's 11 days apart. And it also gives us video proof that Alex Preddy could have been detained actually in the second video rather than murdered. So the investigation is definitely something where they're grasping at straws to try to villainize and destroy Alex Preddy's character as an agitator, as somebody who was coming after ICE violently, when we all know what's happening right now is that the administration and the Department of Justice is trying to do anything they can to cover up the egregious attack and murder of American citizens across the country, especially in Minnesota. We'll stay connected on this. I think this is just becoming ridiculous at this point. We also have, Pam Bondi coming out saying her piece, and we all know everything she says is pretty much a mouthpiece from the president. So Donald Trump has no clue exactly what happened or what happened. He's probably just going off what people are telling him and making decisions with no oversight. And I think Pam Bondi is someone who is leading an improper investigation where she is trying to stir away from this incident to protect the ICE officers at any cost. Her and gross Kristi Noem. Okay, enough of those political losers for now. I want to shift gears and start talking about Democrats right now. So Democrats are surging ahead of the 2026 midterms. And I know that's not too shocking for everyone, but there's so much coming out that I want to do a special talk on what that looks like. So right now we know the Democrats are leading the generic ballot for multiple polls. And that comes from several polls, starting with the Emerson College poll, which shows that Democrats are leading 48% to 42%. And independents are breaking heavily towards, away from MAGA and towards Democrats. Another separate poll from Emerson, but this is from the Decision Desk HQ poll, and it shows that Democrats are ahead 48.1% to 41.7%, with 10% undecided, a significant gap for this far out from the midterms. Even the Wall Street Journal, which otherwise shows voters favoring Republicans on many issues, still finds that Democrats are leading the generic ballot 47% to 43%. So just some takeaways from that. Democrats are consistently ahead. Pretty much their ideals right now, oh my gosh, I can't speak. Their ideological ideas are quite diverse, and we're starting to see that gain a lot of momentum. Furthermore, some issues that are landscaping this and why Democrats are kind of the key voter within these next couple years is because of these main topics. And I know these are going to sound familiar, and this is actually from a Fox News poll. So Democrats are pushing back due to affordability right now, healthcare, vaccines, and also helping the middle class, which is all things that both campaigns ran on in the 2024 election. Now, Republicans are still leading the border security and national security argument in regards to issues where people are going to be voting on. But Democrats are dominating, are the ones where voters are saying these issues are impacting my daily life. Now, why this matters? Because we know midterms are coming up. And we know that Trump's former top pollsters, show that Democrats are having this big lead, right? And that's super important to note because this substantial advantage heading into the 2026 midterms shows that voters are frustrated with this tariff-driven inflation, foreign policy turbulence, and this ongoing political instability from this administration, but most importantly, this GOP-aligned kind of idea of trying to return America to this fiscal responsibility that's not actually making a difference. Now, Democrats have been winning key races leading into 2026 as well. So Democrats won New Jersey and Virginia, both of their gubernatorial races, with their suburban districts showing up, especially in the Midwest and Northeast. So we're seeing a lot of that happening. We saw some local elections here, especially with the Supreme Court, our state Supreme Court. And that was actually really cool to see that. But we also know that Republicans are losing ground with independents. And the Emerson poll that we talked about showed that earlier, but I think it's most important to talk about the economic dissatisfaction that a lot of people are having. Concerns that people are having about political chaos, like just too much division, the backlash from the immigration crackdowns and how intense that's gotten, and obviously the abortion rights, which remains a top issue and a top motivator for independents to start shifting gears from the Republican Party. Trump's approval rating is completely underwater. Decision Desk obviously talked about this, but he had an average approval rating which was obviously much higher, but now it's only 41.4%. And his disapproval rating has risen to 56.2%. So that's definitely more than half. But it's also comes to show that Democrats are benefiting from this structural change in terms of these macro trends and these issues that people are definitely advocating for. The economic frustration, the suburban fatigue in terms of like living paycheck to paycheck, and middle class families still seeing prices being higher than normal. We also see that youth voter registration is rebounding after a slump, and after people were not completely invested in the 2024 election. We're also seeing that abortion rights are back in terms of importance for many voters, continuing to drive turnout in their favor consistently since 2022. So there's been a lot of pushback since the overturn of Roe v. Wade. But most importantly, the House map is starting to move towards Democrats. We're starting to see this substantially from the Cook Political Report, which recently showed a shift that there's 18 House races that are leaning more towards Democrats right now. And that's some good context for us to have, because it should give us a little bit of pause to kind of pause for a minute and at least know that there will be a political shift. It just depends on how great that shift is going to be. But people are really pissed about the handling of this country right now. No one wants to live in a dictatorship, and no one wants to live to fear for their lives just because of an administration that is trying to distract from pedophilia. Speaking of the egregious crimes of people involved in this administration, the Department of Justice releases more Epstein files. Here's Todd Blanche again making a statement of what is being released.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the Act. Just a quick note about the videos and images. the 2,000 videos and 180,000 images are not all videos and images taken by Mr. Epstein or someone around him. They include large quantities of commercial pornography and images that were seized from Epstein's devices, but which he did not take or that someone around him did not take. We're releasing more than 3 million pages today, and not the 6 million pages that we collected. I want to address what we didn't produce. The categories of documents withheld include those permitted under the Act to be withheld: files that contain personally identifiable information of victims, or victims' personal and medical files, and similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Any depiction of CSAM or child pornography was obviously excluded. Anything that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. And finally, anything that depicts or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury, also not produced.
Todd Blanche goes on to say that they also redacted any information regarding any of the women, but in this case, minors that are mentioned in regards to there not being a client list. Let's break this down because that was a lot that Todd Blanche just said. So basically, the Department of Justice released 3 million additional pages. That's quite significant considering it's January 30th, 2026, and they are way past the deadline to release these files and these images and videos. But a part of this release is that there's more than 2,000 videos and there's at least 180,000 images. That is a lot. So, and mind you, this scheme was happening for years, and all of this information came from a lot of personal documents that were in possession of Jeffrey Epstein at the time, and currently what they still have available. But most importantly, the Department of Justice now made nearly 3.5 million pages public, and about 60% of those 6 million total documents have been collected. So let's dive more into this. So in regards to the videos and images, many of them that were seized, as Todd mentioned, were large quantities of commercial pornography, meaning that they were porn videos and images that were taken by Epstein and others. Additionally, the documents that were released were basically the Florida and New York criminal cases against Epstein. So there were information released on that, and as well as information in New York, the New York case against Ghislaine Maxwell. Additionally, there were also some federal investigative files. The redactions, I'm not going to go over those heavily, but we know why victims' names were removed, and why there were heavy redactions from those identities and medical information, personally identified material, all of that stuff was removed. And this is important because the release fulfills requirements of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, signed into law in November 2025. And it also speaks a little bit to how over the past month, the deadline was missed, but it was also, there's a lot of public pressure that is being prompted, and obviously the congressional scrutiny right now from them taking their time with such a egregious crime that we just wanted answers to. So I guess some main takeaways from this is that the largest single release of the Epstein files just happened. And the files are not a bombshell, so we don't have a client list, but we have a lot of massive amounts of digital media. There's a lot of evidence now that can be provided from multiple jurisdictions, and some investigative records that will probably help out a lot of people and a lot of victims that are looking to seek justice. The Department of Justice is now signaling that this release is one of the final steps into complying with the law. We all know that's not true because there's still a bunch of information missing. We know that Donald Trump was very close friends with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of people are shrugging it off as, oh well. But we know that two high-profile people with all that money definitely got away with a lot of egregious crimes. We also know that there's more information coming out about the Epstein files and the trafficking scheme from Jeffrey Epstein. And a lot of the crimes are a little bit more egregious than what has been mentioned, especially within the media. And there's a reason why they are trying to protect these high-profile pedophiles and these high-profile criminals, is because they are really, really chummy with Donald Trump, and all of his staff right now in the White House and his cabinet members know that. So I think what's in it for a lot of these people is money. They're connected with a billionaire, and I think they feel like they're going to get away with it and they're going to be pardoned anyway. But most importantly, when it comes to certain crimes like this, the president will likely get away with it because he's probably going to get away with it. That's just how things have been set up. But the people around him are 100% going to jail if they're covering up a crime, especially of sexual abuse amongst thousands of girls. And not just girls, boys apparently too. So we'll stay more in tune to the Epstein file. I'm happy that there is going to be more information out there so that now that more justice can happen, because this is just getting ridiculous that they've been sitting on this and have been putting so many distractions out there, especially when it comes to ICE and everything else happening in the country, when in reality we know that the president is a pedophile and clearly hangs out with somebody like Nicki Minaj. Anyway, shifting gears, has anybody seen the Melania documentary? Let's see what Global News is telling us.
Here we go again.
So far, reaction to the First Lady's first documentary isn't exactly what you'd put on a movie marquee.
Because this literally is something you can't make up. This is a Hollywood farce.
She may have rung the bell at the New York Stock Exchange to herald the movie's arrival in theaters Friday, but before it's even hit screens, the film's been getting review bombed on movie site Letterboxd. Did I watch this? No. Do I need to? Also no, writes one commentator. If they showed this on a plane, people would still walk out, writes another. The timing couldn't be worse. On the very day ICE agents killed nurse Alex Preddy, the White House went ahead with its preview of Melania for special guests that night.
I've seen pieces of it. It's incredible, I tell you.
Melania's director is also controversial, Brett Ratner, banished by Hollywood after accusations of sexual misconduct in 2017. Then there's the flick's financial backing, Amazon shelling out $40 million US for worldwide rights and spending another $35 million to market it. A plotline ripe for criticism.
Jeff Bezos and Amazon had a fractious relationship with Trump. That's well documented. All of a sudden, the billionaires show up on Inauguration Day, literally show up, sit behind him, and money starts to change hands.
American late-night talk show hosts adding that to their scripts.
Amazon bribed a whopping $40 million for the movie.
Are you really trying to tell us that this dumb vanity project / corporate bribe is a work of art?
The documentary.
Because we know it isn't. And to quote Melania, I don't really care, do you? And her movie should flop. Because they're a very tone-deaf administration and definitely a very tone-deaf first couple of the country. They're completely detached. They can't relate to the average American. Melania, no one wants to go see your movie. And this timing could not be worse. I think Global News hit it on the head when they said that you all are trying to release a movie about the First Lady and her lavish lifestyle when in reality the country is in turmoil. How gross. And how self-serving. So much for America first. In sad news, we have a recent update, and it was just mentioned that Catherine O'Hara, who was famous from movies like Home Alone, the TV show Schitt's Creek, and movies like Beetlejuice and Best in Show, just passed away at 71. So she's most famous for her role as Kate McAllister in Home Alone. She played the mother, Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek, and not to mention that she was also in a few mockumentaries with Christopher Guest in shows as mentioned like Best in Show, Mighty Wind, and she also had amazing improv background. She spent over 50 years in film and television. She started in sketch comedy way back when, and then was also a winner of 2 Primetime Emmys, a Golden Globe, and 2 SAG Awards. Her films have grossed over 4.3 billion worldwide. Audience loved her humor. She was a lovable character, and she was just very beloved by people who enjoyed the show Schitt's Creek as well. Rest in peace to her, and I hope she rests in peace and that her family is doing well amidst this, among the news that was just mentioned. To end on a better note, the Prime Minister of Canada has a few words to mention about heated rivalry. Let's take a listen.
Rachel and Jacob, congratulations on creating a story that has struck a chord with so many across this country, around the world. Because of you, cottage season will have a whole meeting this summer. And we all know, the world knows, that Shane and Ilya are rising hockey stars who fall for each other as they face off in one of the greatest rivalries the game has ever known. But they're also two young men who are terrified of being their fullest self. And we live in an increasingly dangerous, divided, and intolerant world. And the hard-fought rights of the 2S LGBTQI+ community are under threat, including in many of the countries where the show has record-setting audiences. Let's sink that in.
How about that for a competent and well-informed leader? Mark Carney is a great leader of Canada, and I'm jealous. I feel like he needs to be our president. He needs to come and take over our country. But no, he's right. Heated rivalry means a lot, but I think it's super important to mention that a lot of people can still be murdered or still be killed under the law for being a part of the LGBTQ+ community in many countries around the world. And just the representation that these two actors and that the creators and the book author put forth is super great for generations to come, but most importantly right now in plenty of political climates around the world where people like us are treated like we are less than. And obviously that's not true. We have a leader that's speaking directly to that. So thank you to the Heated Rivalry people and Mark Carney, the Prime Minister. You're awesome for doing that. Thank y'all for listening to another episode of Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. This is your host, Mark Long. You know I bring it to you fresh every time. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. I'll see you next week.